Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. We are here tonight to discuss the Muslim Lantern. It's been a few episodes, and we know you all love us taking apart the Muslim Lantern. So tonight he is contacted by a woman who is considering Islam, but yeah, she's got a lot of questions, and he's not particularly good at allaying her fears. So there's a number of different topics we'll get into. It's quite rapid fire, and I hope you'll enjoy it. There is a bit of news though before we get going. Of course, I'm here with Stop Spamming, my long-term co-host. So welcome, Stops.
Hi. Good evening.
Yeah, so a bit of news before we get started. This is going to be the last show which I'm going to be hosting, and Stops will be co-hosting. We have decided to. Yeah, I know. I feel like I need like a button, one of those sound effect buttons to do tears or something like that. Or, an audience going, oh, and I'm sure you'll all be feeling it, anyone who's listening at the moment. But yeah, we were going to carry on until the end of the month, and but I've been thinking I really have neglected my own channel far too much, and I'm going to be going back to doing there. I will be doing a live stream over there, and there's a link in my channel in the description of this video to my channel. That's where I'm going to be doing live streams similar to this for the future. But yeah, this is going to be our last one. Now, does that mean the Gin and Tonic show is ending? No, it doesn't. So we've got Nick, the former host of the show, is going to be picking up the mantle again, and he's going to be producing some pre-recorded episodes which will be done in his swanky new studio and stuff. I'm not sure exactly when he'll be doing that, but hopefully within the next sort of couple of weeks. But for the time being, the live streams will be on hiatus as far as I understand, but you will be getting the new episodes from him. Also, all the classic episodes are still going up, so please be watching them. And yeah, and maybe we do live in a world of sequels, so perhaps Stops and I might return for a Christmas special or something. But that will sort of be dependent on all you guys. Please stay and subscribe, support Nick as he carries on the show, like he did before, and yeah, we'll see how things go from there. But as I say, if you haven't already, I know a lot of you are subscribed to my channel. Please go and subscribe. At the link below in the description, and come join me for future live streams there. And that is the news. So I think now we will get straight on into looking at the Muslim Lantern. So as I say, this woman has called him up, and she has many questions, some of them about women in Islam and some on other topics. So we're just going to take a listen and see what Muslim Lantern's got to say.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay.
So I just have some questions about things that I'm having a hard time accepting within Islam.
Okay, go ahead. So what is the questions that you have? Go ahead.
Well, my first question is, can I still be a Muslim if I agree with the core theology? Like I agree with that there's a creator and that there's prophets, but some of the things I disagree with some of the leadings or ideas in Islam, like some of the things that the prophets say, like I don't completely agree with those.
And no, if you disagree with any part of the Quran and you say you don't believe in that thing, or you disagree with it, you think is wrong, it's not up to the times, it's not up to the standards, it's not just, it's not fair, or the Prophet ﷺ was wrong about this specific thing, this would disqualify the person from being a Muslim.
Yeah,
okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, I think at this point, right, if you did actually disagree, not just with parts of the Quran, but stuff that Muhammad has said, particularly if he's making claims about the world which are demonstrably false, then it does make me wonder why you'd actually want to become a Muslim. But it also just does show how literalistic this is all seen. So he doesn't even sort of try to say, well, look, maybe you could interpret different parts of the Quran in different ways, and there is some room for flexibility. He doesn't even do that. It's just like, no, doesn't matter. If you think it's unfair, if you think it's unjust, you just accept it. You just have to accept any stuff that's in there, no matter how horrible it is, no matter how contradictory it is. And it's kind of a theme of this video is like your logical or moral thinking means nothing. Just submit to Islam. And it's a bad start, I think.
Well, he's not even interested in what it actually is, that she is doubting about. And the thing is, like, his beard is not the correct length. So, if you're taking everything literal, then he should not be a Muslim.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it is that kind of level of stupidity. But you're right. I mean, that's a good point. He doesn't even seem interested in like trying to get to the bottom of like what it just straight away. This is how we're going to start. No, you already failed as a Muslim if you question anything. So I just think that's
binary.
Yeah.
Okay.
A Muslim, the definition of the word means submitter, someone who submits to the revelation.
Okay.
He submits to Allah, he submits to the messenger and the teachings of Allah and his messenger, basically. It's a definition of what the word Muslim means.
Okay, so there's a couple other questions that I have, or that like just don't completely make sense to me. But one of them is that there is, so in the chapter of Muhammad, it talks a lot about how disbelievers' good deeds get dismissed on Judgment Day. But my question is, disbelievers can still be good people, so why do their good deeds get dismissed?
Yeah, good deeds are dismissed on the Day of Judgment, not dismissed in this world. So they can get something for what they do in this world. Allah says he gives them in return of what they do in this world, because what they did was for this world. Those people, you can use the term good people. We wouldn't agree with that terminology, by the way.
Yeah, well, just before he gets into slagging off the disbelievers, I just think that's quite funny because he's saying like, oh, well, they will get something in this world. But at the same time, he thinks this world is completely pointless. There's no value except for getting into heaven. So unless you're working your way up to Islamic paradise, all this benefit you get in the real world is just completely meaningless. So what's the point in telling her? How's that going to like persuade her that like, oh, well, it's okay that it doesn't matter if you're a good person in this world because you get some little reward here, you get some trinkets here before you burn eternally in hell. I mean, that doesn't sound like something it's going to persuade anyone.
He's just making it very clear that it's absolute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But now he gets into this lovely rant, which again, I think he has done this in previous videos, but it just shows that he thinks that non-believers are just bad people by definition. And so there is just no sense of like try to reach hands across and be peaceful and coexist and all that. It's just like, no, you are evil scum. And this is pretty much what he's about to say.
Okay. They can do good things. That does not mean they're good people. There's a difference between the two. But when you say those people have still done something good, let's assume, for example, they give charity. Mm-hmm. What is the intention they have when they give in charity?
Well, there can be a variety of intentions.
Go ahead, give me. They're not believers, so what kind of intentions they have?
So they could be giving charity because they agree with the cause, or they feel empathy for the people who need the money. Like there's a couple different reasons as to why they could.
And there are many selfish reasons as well. For example, they want to feel good, because when you do that, you feel good. When you
how would that be any different between a disbeliever and a believer, though? You could give charity, you could believe in God, but you could also feel good in the moment for doing it. So what's the difference there?
No, I don't think this crosses his mind.
When you give others, you feel good yourself. They can be doing it so people can praise them and say, "Oh, look, this person's a charitable person. Look at all the good that he's doing." But
yeah, which is exactly, I mean, how many times I've spoken to Muslims when they've said, oh, Muslims are the most giving, they give the most to charity when you look at the stats and stuff like that. What, you're not trying to get a round of applause for that? I mean, again, it's just the same intention, whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim.
All of these intentions that you mentioned, is any of them for the sake of God?
Not the ones that I mentioned, no.
Or any, because they don't believe in God to begin with, so they will never have an intention to do with God.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a selfish intention, because it's not about, I mean, it is the worst possible selfish intention, because it's all about your reward in paradise or avoiding hell. You're saying as if like you're doing God a favor. At the same time, you're saying that God doesn't need anything. So this is pure, he says in other videos, this is purely for your own benefit to praise God and stuff like that. Why? Because you get to heaven. So it could not be a more selfish act. And yet he's acting as if this is the ultimate good. It's just so fucking ridiculous.
So why should they expect God to reward them? Why should God reward people who didn't do anything for him?
I love that. Why should God reward you for doing good deeds? Like when you've got no sense of I'm going to get some reward in heaven. I've just done it because I genuinely care about that person suffering and I want to try and alleviate it. He thinks it means nothing morally and ethically. He just thinks that's trash reasoning. It should only be done to get yourself into heaven. I mean, how is this not just a complete inversion of what any rational person would see as moral behavior? It's
And I have to come up with my old point. You were created by this God who knew from the beginning what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to end up. So it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't change anything. You know from the start what is going to happen. So what's the point?
mm.
You still with me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just
Yeah, it's fine. You're
like,
thinking
it's a
about
fair
it.
point.
Yeah. This is the thing. Look, if you didn't do it for Allah, then there's no point of Allah. Why would Allah reward you for it? You did it for this life. You did it for your own selves.
So that shows Allah does not care about the suffering of other people that you alleviate. That is literally what he just said. That it's like, why would Allah reward you for helping some poor person that's really struggling in life, the life that Allah created for them? Like, why would that be considered a good thing to do that? Why would Allah give a fuck about it? I mean, this is what he's saying. How does he not hear himself and just realize what kind of God do I think I'm worshipping here that doesn't care about the suffering in the world? It's just insane to me.
Every time I hear this, I automatically think of Trump. Because he's also, I don't care about your votes. I just care about myself. That's it. This is exactly his playbook.
Uh,
And Allah lives you in this life. He gives you provision. He lets you live. He shows mercy on you. But when the time comes, and
did you want to cut in there, or was that just a general?
No,
sigh?
this is just a groan of frustration, because it's simply not flipping true. What the hell are you talking about? How many children of Muslim parents die every single minute because there is no Allah giving them sustenance or letting them live? No, this is bullshit that you are. This is so terrible. Giving credit where it's good and then denying it where it's bad.
Mm.
in the day of judgment, that creator that you don't believe in, you cannot come complain of how he's treating you because you didn't even give him any care. You didn't even care that he exists.
Again, the ego of this guy. I mean, I know
Yeah.
we've covered these different sort of topics over a number of previous videos, but they all seem to be coalescing into one thing. That again, this just shows that Allah is desperate for that attention, desperate for that acknowledgement in within their own philosophy, and yet he said he doesn't need it. But he's kind of like, this God's going to be so petty that even though you don't believe him, you went out for no eternal reward to help other people, you know, Allah's children. And Allah doesn't care about that. He just does not give a shit. He's more concerned that you didn't touch your head on the floor 5 times a day and, you know, recognize him. I mean, if this was a human being, would anybody respect it for that kind of mentality? Again, like you talk about Trump or any other kind of like narcissist. You would
Exactly.
just for what
That's
they
the
are, a
word.
narcissist. You'd say they're completely immoral. But when it comes to Allah, suddenly, this is like the best morality in the world. This is the only morality that you can have.
Yeah, those are the two words, narcissist and immoral. That's exactly what it's all about. Because the people who wrote the Quran were just about me, me, me. You know, the self-gratification, this grifter mentality that they have. I need to be sustained. I need to get everything. You need to donate everything to me. And if you donate something to somebody else in my name, then you can get a small reward. Then maybe when you're dead, I'm going to give you a mansion in heaven. I mean, come on, please.
Yeah. But otherwise, Allah is completely ambivalent about the suffering that's going on. Whether
Yeah,
you try and help out or you don't, it means nothing to him. I mean, what? And this is the most merciful, most loving God. Yeah.
Great.
You ignored him. You ignored all of his commands. You pretended as if he's not even there. So you deserve what you get.
Okay.
Well, no, you didn't pretend. I love the way he slipped that in. You didn't pretend he wasn't there. You weren't convinced by your bullshit claims. There's a big difference between that. But yet, this is the mentality of a lot of these dawah guys, is that they think we're all just pretending. They can't actually fathom the idea that we don't find these claims of the Quran being some perfect book a convincing claim. You know, the fact it's full of errors, for example. We should just ignore that. No, we're just pretending. We're just pretending.
So I wonder if this Muslim lantern has ever been confronted with a claim. Well, you failed because you could not convince me. You could not bring me any argument to convince me that this God existed. So you are the cause that I'm going to hell. You are the cause that I am not a Muslim. You have failed. I wonder what his reply would be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. Stops. I'm gonna have to pause. If you can just carry on, if you can just entertain the audience for the next 30 seconds, because I need to quickly go silent. Sorry about this, everyone.
Yeah, there's so many things that you can say as soon as you apply logical thinking, rational thinking, and most of all critical thinking, because the critical thinking must be switched off completely. This is the core concept and principle of the virus, the Islam virus. And then, of course, rational thinking and logical thinking are severely restrained. You're just not allowed to do that. And I feel like redoing a series that I started on logical contradictions in the Quran in Islam, because there's so many of them.
You
And
should do
this
that
is
for sure.
it's
Thank you for covering. Sorry about that. A little emergency, but I'm all ready to continue again.
Okay.
Another one is I have a question about the Day of Judgment. So the Day of Judgment is described as like on that day, everyone will be so fearful and focused on themselves that they won't even be able to recognize their own mother, their own children, etc. So as someone who is a mother, like I have a little baby, in a time where I am so scared, why would I not protect my children who are also scared? Why would I leave them to fend for myself?
Yeah, it's not just about the idea of protection. The verse is not necessarily talking about protection only, and it's not just the fear; it's the shock. There's a shock factor in which then the immense amount of the shock removes everything. It keeps your mind blank. And we can go back a few minutes, for example, when you were thinking about the answer that I gave you, you stayed blank for a minute there. So that was the only thing in your mind. There was nothing else in your mind. So when you get a shock of seeing, for example, angels, seeing hellfire and heaven, seeing things we would refer to as supernatural from today's perspective, you cannot even there is no one else in your mind at that time.
I don't think he's really got the spirit of this question from her.
no.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, she's basically saying, like, we're already at Judgment Day here, and there's already got, like, why is it this situation of panic and everyone running around in despair and wouldn't even, care about my children and stuff like that? It sounds absolutely horrific. I think that is the point she's trying to get at. Why would you put me through such a horrific ordeal on Judgment Day, in terms of not being even able to comfort my child or whatever, considering that everybody is supposed to get judgment at the same time, so I suppose they would be there. It's like, why would God set up a system where you're just adding extra layers of suffering into Judgment Day? Because that seems to be the spirit of what she's asking.
And he doesn't
he
address
seem to
this
get
at
that.
all. He does nothing to comfort her, to bring her down, to calm her down, or anything like that, or to in other way, in any way, sell Islam. He's increasing the fear factor. He's increasing the anxiety.
This is why it makes me laugh, these videos. It's like, how does this convince people? And I honestly think, just from his own point of view, there seems to be something genuinely psychopathic about this guy, because he doesn't even, like, he just can't seem to empathize with the fears and the worries of people. It's just basically, just follow orders. That's it. Just follow orders. Why should I care if you're afraid? It's really disturbing. I thought religion, in some sense, was supposed to give people comfort. He doesn't. He's just kind of like, oh yeah, you should be afraid. You should be screaming and you're so terrified for yourself, you're not even going to think of your children. It's like, what are you selling here?
Fantastic. I mean, he says you need a camera. Why do you need a camera? Well, to identify you and to read your cues, to give you hints about body language and things like that. Now, I'm very much aware of body language, but look at his body language. There is nothing in his face. There is no empathy. There is no understanding. There is no reaction in his face at all. It's like he's an AI robot or a human being, like injected with Botox or something. There is not a muscle in his face that is moving. I mean, I normally watch for eyebrows. I watch twitching of nostrils, or the corners of your mouth. Things. There is nothing here.
But the only body language I ever see from this guy is that shit-eating grin he puts on whenever he's like,
Yeah, but
either,
even that's
you know,
fake.
no. I think he generally enjoys it when he's basically calling like non-believers degenerate or something like that. Then he's got this grin on his face, like, "Oh, you've got no real morality," and blah blah blah. So what does it matter if I, you know, if Muhammad had relations with a 9-year-old, you know? And he seems to enjoy it. But again, to me, there's something deeply psychopathic like that. You see, Daniel
Yes, I
Hakikachu
agree.
does that. When Daniel Hakikachu talks about the worst possible elements
He
of
also
Islam,
smiles.
he's
Yeah,
got that horrible grin on his face, and this
yeah,
guy is not that different from him. So yeah, it's disturbing. I don't know why people
I
keep
agree.
going to this guy.
Mhm.
It's just you. And if you see hellfire and the descriptions of hellfire, or description of the punishment there, it's impossible for you to try to think about anything else, because that occupies your complete mind of where you're going to end up yourself.
Mhm. I have another question. I know a lot of people when they join when they become Muslim, a lot of them will pick an Islamic name. But if your name isn't like if your born name isn't anti-Islamic, is it still necessary to pick an
No.
Islam name?
This is a bit of a weird question, but I was thinking, what name would somebody have that's anti-Islamic? I really don't get this question. I thought I was almost going to cut this out, but I just thought it was so weird that, like, can you think? Does anyone call their child, like, I don't know, you know, Muhammad is an arsehole or something? Is that a name that people give to? I mean,
No, but I think if your name, like for example, is Gabriel or something, or something other that is protected, I would imagine, or typical like Judas or you know these typical biblical names. Maybe this is what she's after.
oh right, hey, Rising Dam. Rising Dam says maybe a Hindu god. Oh yeah, I
Or
mean that's
something like that, yeah.
yeah, it could be
Like
something like that.
Kali.
Yeah.
No, you're welcome to keep your name. And there is a lot of people who tell people, "Oh, change your name." You shouldn't. Look, as long as your name is okay, I actually recommend that people keep their name. This is how people know them. This is how people speak to them. This is what they've been used to. Unless their name has a problematic connotation, like the servant or the worshipper of Christ, for example, something like this, which exists in Arabic, for example. Some people have this name. So then, okay, then there you have to change your name, because you don't worship human beings. So unless this is the case, even if it was the worshipper of Muhammad, peace be upon them, we'd still ask you to change the name, because that name is incorrect Islamically, and is worshiping other than Allah. So
I'm not going to pause it there because it's interesting that he says he would actually prefer you to keep your name. I wonder if that is because if you've got a typically non-sounding Islamic name, then that kind of shows that like it becomes like this shock value thing of, look, that person's converted, and you just don't know how many other people called Sally or John or Jim or whoever who might secretly have converted to Islam because a message is so powerful. I'm wondering if there's that kind of element to it, like to sort of because you know in their mind they love this idea that everyone's converting to Islam, even though it's a load of crap.
I've never thought about this actually.
Yeah, because I think I mean when you look at a lot of the Dawah guys, they do. I mean, you've got obviously Hamza Redbeard, Chasers,
Hamzat sources and so on, yeah.
Hamza Sources. I think yeah, most of them do, don't they? Most of them. Paul Williams, you know that Christian guy. I can't remember if he changed his name or not, but yeah, a lot of them do. But no, anyways, yeah, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but I just thought it was kind of
Yusuf
interesting.
Istish.
So it all depends on the name. If the name is okay, it has a good meaning, like a name of the flower, or a good name of something good, basic, good characteristic, then there's no need for the person to change the name.
And another one, and I'm sure you've talked about this one before. Sometimes it seems like Islam can be a little bit oppressive towards women.
Yeah, that is the fucking understatement of the
A
century.
little bit. Oh dear.
I mean, that would be like saying something like Trump can sometimes be a little bit narcissistic. I mean, yeah.
So for example, when we aren't allowed to be seen by men, we aren't allowed to talk to men, we aren't allowed to travel alone outside of our house unless we have permission or a guardian. Why are things like that put in place only for women?
Okay, let me just ask first one question, because you said Islam is like oppressive to women, and then you give few examples. You said talk to men, which obviously Islam doesn't say talk to men is haram, for example, right?
Like mahar.
Mahram, yes.
Mahram.
So
Yeah.
excellent. So now you are saying it's a specific type of man. So we should
Yeah, it's a specific type of men. Most of the men in the whole fucking world. That's the point. Yeah, you can talk to your immediate family members. You can talk to your uncle and your grandfather and your brother. But every other man on the planet, you're not allowed to speak to. So I love the way it's like, oh no, we're only talking about specific men, like 99.99999% of them. So that's fine then. That's fine if you can't do.
Let me just say something quick about the tactics here. If you go and you give these dawah guys options, they will pick the one that is the most likely and where they are, where it's less of an effort to get away with it. What you should do is always just say, keep it general. Don't you make the suggestions. Let him make the suggestions. So the question should have been, is there any way that women and men are on an equal basis at all times? And then he has to come and say, well, here not, here not, here not, and here not. Whereas if you give the suggestions, you'll just pick the easiest one.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think we have a guest here. It's a little known name, Rob from Speaker's Corner. Welcome, sir.
Yo,
Hello, guys. How are you,
hey,
boys? Apologies, I had a late dinner I had to take care of, so I thought I'd come and join you for the last of at least your version of this. How you guys doing?
brilliant.
Yeah, we're doing well. We're doing well. We're about 1/3 of the way through the video. It's just a various selection of Muslim Lantern fielding questions rather badly, but yeah, we're doing very well. And for those who don't know, Rob is a former co-host along with Stops. He ran the Gin and Tonic show for many years.
He was also a host for a long time.
Yeah,
I was the co-host because I couldn't be there because I was traveling.
and he has popped up a few times during this run of ours, and we're always really happy to see him. So yeah, we're just going to carry straight on, Rob, if you're okay with that. And
Yeah, sure. I'll sort of catch up. It's great to see you guys, and greetings to everybody in there who's listening.
Okie doke.
Should not be then generalizing it to everyone. So if it's a specific type of men, there must be a reason. Okay, what is a non-mahram in the Islamic perspective? A non-mahram is, in the Islamic perspective, someone you can marry. That means that there is sexual tension that can exist between you and the individual. Sexual attraction, all of these things can exist between you and the individual. So limiting the contact between these two individuals, because that person has a specific category. But for example, me speaking to my brother, my father, or something like this, or my grandfather, these are all men still, and I'm allowed to speak to them. This idea doesn't exist, and even the woman can dress, or she can have her hair, she can have out when she's speaking to her family members, male or non-male. So when you say, but you made the term,
I'm just going to stop in there because there's a lot of caveats you can give to the claim that he's just made. First of all, we know that sexual tension could be through other people, like, for example, gay women. I mean, I know that the Muslim Lantern doesn't believe that gay people exist, really. He thinks they're all just putting it on. But for the rest of the world, who is not insane, we know that gay women exist. So, what about that sexual tension? What about those people in families who are having inappropriate relations with their with their other family members? You're acting as if like, oh well, just because he's your brother or your uncle or some cousin or whatever, he's not going to have sexual attraction to you. Well, unfortunately, we know that stuff does go on in all societies. So does that really protect a woman? I mean, you're not getting protected from, and in fact, that's most abuse I think does take place within families. So it doesn't protect her there. And what about gay men? Again, I know he doesn't believe that gay people exist, but surely that woman would be able to talk to gay men if this is the thing you're worried about, sexual attraction. So, as a rule, I mean, I think it's stupid on the face of it, but even if you were to accept the Islamic paradigm, there's so many caveats you can throw into there. It's the reasoning, the logic of it is just all over the place.
And again, let me just go to the tactic. You see what she's done? She's made some proposals. And of course, now he doesn't address her question at all. He goes on about mahram, trying to define it and trying to bring examples of that thing while completely ignoring the real elephant in the room. He's totally gone off the rails there.
One thing in his mind, it's just, well, I know in his mind, because he says it often enough in his videos, it is just basically, this is the ruling and you have to accept it. Now, we can also with kind of...
but he doesn't acknowledge it. Because he's carrying on about something else because she suggested it, and unfortunately, he's picked that up and now he's running with it.
Yeah, but in his mind, because of this sexual attraction thing, because you could potentially be married to any of these men that you meet, therefore, basically, we've got to keep you clean. We've got to keep you unsullied. That seems to me the real thing, so that you are an opportunity for those men in the future.
Yeah.
Really, it's a horrible, again, it's this fake morality, which is actually really immoral, in my opinion, when you actually dig into the details of it. Anyways, let's carry on.
You said oppressive. So can you define what is oppression?
So to me, the idea of oppression is when someone is limited in what they are and aren't allowed to do.
Okay, but that is not the definition for oppression.
Okay.
Oppression is unjust treatment.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, I just want to stop it there because it's very rare that I would actually agree with the Muslim man on something. But yes, his definition is much better. Her definition was, and I don't want to criticize her too much. It's hard when you come on these live streams and stuff, but that was a poor definition from her. And I would say his is much better. Yes, it would be unjust treatment. You could probably find better definitions, but I'd be happy to go with that. But then the funny thing is, he'll just then dismiss all the unjust treatment she comes up with just because Allah says that that's the way it happens. So yeah, I just think it's worth pointing out.
Just a quick one for you guys. Interesting enough, speaking to my philosophical friends, apparently there are no wrong definitions. In other words, the definitions aren't true or false. They're what's called non-truth apt. And so you just have various definitions, but typically what you're looking for is one that's widely held. And somebody could define the sun as the moon or whatever the case is. It wouldn't be false, but rather that it would just be, like a private definition or whatever the case is. So just an interesting philosophical side point when people say you've got a wrong definition. In fact, you've got a definition that's either private or, minimal or something. But since definitions aren't truth apt by nature, I guess you could say, they aren't true or false in that sense. And whenever I speak to people, I just say, well, you just have a very idiosyncratic or, minimal definition in the sense that very few people understand it that way. And, I'm typically looking for how people typically understand words. And that's the definitions I'm going to go with. So just a side note on that one.
That's why I call it a generally accepted description.
Yeah. But,
yes.
I mean, if I said full, I mean, I think I said weak, but if I said false, then yeah, okay.
No. It's not correcting you. Just a side note separately.
No, I will accept
like
Rob's
some idiosyncratic.
I'll accept Rob's definition of the word definition. So we're definitely on course.
So this is limitations, is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So but then you're oppressed by the country you're living in, then, because there's so many things.
Oh.
So all of the Western women are oppressed then, because Western women cannot, drink and drive, for example. They're all oppressed.
I mean, what a bizarre example to bring up at that point. His idea of being oppressed by a Western woman is that you can't drink and drive. Yeah.
Well, men can't drink and drive either. So.
Well, they can't drink, and they used to not be able to drive in Saudi Arabia. I think they can.
Oh, is that what he's referring to, Saudi Arabia?
Well, I don't know. But
No. He's being an arsehole. He's being a complete arsehole here, because he's saying, well, you can't call anything being oppressed because there are oppressions anywhere and everywhere. So if everybody and anywhere is... If you are restricted anywhere or being treated whatever, then this is good enough reason for you to be able to do it in Islam as well. So then it's valid and it's okay, which is being stupid. It's disingenuous.
I think he goes one step further than that.
Unjust. He said unjust. Well, is it unjust if you drink and drive? Yes. And this is exactly what Rob was just saying. It's unjust for a man, for a male or female. It's the same treatment. So it's not unjust. What she is after is the unjust treatment of women compared to men. That is the issue. And he is not going to address it. I'm quite sure of that.
Well, he does try to as we go along, but all of his reasoning is pretty poor, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, the very example that he immediately throws out doesn't make any sense, because, as you say, why would there be any difference between men drinking and driving or women drinking and driving? And also, you can make very reasonable arguments for why you shouldn't be drinking and driving because of the harm factor involved. So yeah,
I think the other point. You're right.
No,
I think the other point is that typically, and I'm just looking at a definition, one of the other prongs of being oppressed is like it's prolonged. If your rights are taken away, you have some unjust treatment for a day, you're not going to run around saying you're being oppressed typically. So typically it's going to be something that's ongoing or regular or something like that as well. So that's kind of to be differentiated. You wouldn't say, oh, I was oppressed today because, I don't know, the police officer pulled me over unjustly or whatever. You probably aren't going to say that, or not be taken seriously, I think. So it would need to be sort of ongoing or regular or something like that.
But I think he's implying just basically if there's any limitation on your behaviour or your actions, then you could call that oppression. I think.
Well, then, but then, but as Stops pointed out, and I think you did, but then everybody's oppressed. So I mean, that's just like ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good, terrible argument.
Okay.
You get what I'm trying to say. So if we use the term oppression there, then you have to say that all Western women are oppressed. Wherever you live, wherever you are, there has to be certain limitations to the things that you can do and the things that you cannot. Do you agree with me on this?
Okay.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the Islamic rules, depends on the rule that you ask. There is a reason. And I give you an example. You talked about, for example, being around non-mahram men. I explained to you the idea that these are two genders that will be attracted to one another. Prophet ﷺ, he said, when you're alone with a woman, the third person is Satan. So Satan tries to beautify the woman for the man, and also the woman in her heart sways for the man, is vice versa. It happens with both of them.
Sorry, I just got to pause it there. I mean, it's no great like in-depth comment, but just like what a wonderful sentiment that is. If a man and woman is together, the third person is Satan. I mean, it's this fear factor that runs through everything. Even just standing in the company of somebody of the opposite sex, Satan is there with you. I mean, obviously, yes, they're talking metaphorically, but it's just this low opinion that, like, in terms of people's capacity for self-control in Islam, it's just amazing to me.
That's where the saying comes from: two's company, three's a crowd.
Yeah, because the devil's there. Yeah.
When you talk about travel is when a woman will become in a place when she's alone. She doesn't have any protection. She doesn't have any. It's long distances. She'll be tired. She'll have most likely to sleep alone.
Yeah, because men don't get tired when they travel long distance. I mean, this is a terrible argument. And also protection, right? Because look, I think you can reasonably say that yes, a single woman by herself, on average, is going to be more vulnerable to attack than the average single man, by themselves. I think that is a reasonable assertion to make, just in terms of, yes, men on average are going to be physically stronger, so maybe a bit, it's going to be a bit easier for them to fight people off. But the thing is, when you look at so much of, attacks that happen in the street, it will be several people at once. You use numbers advantages. So as much as in theory, yes, men are less vulnerable, it only takes 2 or 3 guys to jump you. And I don't care if you're like the best martial artist in the world. I mean, numbers really do count. Or someone can just pull a weapon on you. So it's like this idea that this should be some hard and fast rule that condemns women to be forever inside because we're worried about these attacks. Well, I could think of better ways to deal with it. How about you teach women self-defense? Or hell, teach them weapons training, quite frankly.
No, create men that they respect women. It's much easier.
Well, I mean, I'm not advocating like, everyone should be going around with a gun or anything like that, but I'm just saying, a taser or something like that for a woman. I mean, 10,000 volts or however many they shoot out, that can be a good leveler. So I'm just saying, like the way to deal with it is not necessarily just imprisoning women, without a male guardian.
No, sorry, what I was saying is create men so that they respect women.
Oh, that would be a good one, yeah. Do it at the source, yeah. But Allah's already bypassed that. He's decided no.
Can't do that.
In a hotel or in a place, she needs protection. She needs someone to look after her, and she might need help in wherever she goes. So there is a lot of reasons I can give you, but the main thing, it's not these reasons, is the Creator commanded it. He knows the nature of a man, he knoes the nature of a woman, and he knows what is beneficial for both parties.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. I mean, he will keep going back to this point now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. All this talk, even if I can't justify it to you, his position is that the Creator said it, so you've just got to fucking do it anyway. And this is why I've titled this video in terms of, logic versus Islam. Because fundamentally, this guy doesn't care about logic or critical thinking or morality. It's all just about whether Allah commanded it.
Well, it's interesting because, he appealed back to God there, right? Because God said so. And I asked people today, I happened to be on Clubhouse today for a bit, and I asked them, how do you know God is good? And my word, they fumbled over themselves to try and answer this question. It was amusing to listen to. Pointed to the whole world And I said, look, guys, let me help you out here, right? If you're going to say because God says so, you've got to establish that God is all good, right? And you know, if you point to the world, which is what they, at least a few of them, try to do, look at the world, it's balanced, it's this, that, and the other. And I said, hang on a moment, boys. That can be the case with a not all good God as well, or I'll just say malevolent God. He doesn't have to be completely evil, but he's just malevolent, i.e. not all good. And pretty much anything you point to in the world can be justified under that view. So what you have to find is some sort of asymmetry if you're going to appeal to the world, or you're going to have to find some other argument that doesn't beg the question, doesn't assume it's the case by definition, or appeal to the book, because that's going to just be circular reasoning. And it was amusing. You guys would have found it pretty amusing. They just battled like goodness knows. They just couldn't provide like good reasoning to show that God is good, or how they knew God was good, rather. So, and that's all they've got left, right? When you strip it away, what this guy did and what typically has happened, they're just going to appeal to faith, or because it's definitional, because the book said so, which is circular. So, like, very terrible justification there.
And they don't know Euthyphro.mi either, which is astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the worst circular thing is just to say it's God's nature, therefore anything that he commands is automatically good by definition. I mean, that's the worst kind of circular logic. It's the most complete circular logic, I suppose.
Well, there is a good response to that as well. I have to bring it up here, but there is a good response, just very quickly, so you guys know, because typically most theists will take the second, what I think is the second horn, right, of the Euthyphro dilemma. For those people who don't know it, and it's not my colleagues here, but people online, it's typically asked as, does God will something because it's good, or is something good because God wills it? Now, if you take the first horn, then it's something outside of God. He's appealing to something because it's good outside of himself, that he's appealing to some standard out there. And of course, if it's good because he wills it, then it's like he's the standard. But then, of course, the question you can ask, you can just kick it back a step. That just doesn't help you, because then the philosopher Jeremy Koons basically asked the same question again, just rephrased slightly, which still leaves you with this dichotomy. Are the good-making properties of God good because God possesses them, or does he possess them because they are good? And there, typically, the theists are going to take the second horn again. He possesses them because they are good. But essentially, that ultimately ends up with the good-making properties being unintelligible. And I'll read it to you very quickly, just so it's on recording if you ever want to go back to it. A very short thing, but this is a good response. I could give it to you guys as well if you ever needed this. If they ever go with this, oh, it's his nature that's good, then you can appeal to, or because he is good, then you can appeal to this, rephrase the Euthyphro dilemma. But the reason why going with the second horn there, he possesses them because they are good. That just entails that when we consider when someone is good, we give details such as having virtues. For God, we are debarred. In other words, we can't appeal to citing virtues, because these virtues are good because God has them. God's goodness confers goodness on the virtues and not the other way around. That means God's goodness is logically prior to any virtues, which is to say, God is good even without these virtues. And then the question is, due to this logical priority, we are debarred from citing anything to give an explanation of God's goodness, so it is empty of content and unintelligible. So when there the word good is uttered, if you take that view, or somebody takes that view, it's like them saying good, God is gobbledygook. And so, but I can mail you guys this. So if you ever appeal with this response, I've never heard a decent response against this whenever I've posed this to people. So
but
just
Rob,
something to
you
be
can
aware
make
of.
it much shorter. If it's good, then you just say, then you don't need God. If it's good, why the hell do you need God if it's already good?
Well, because they're saying God is essentially God's nature is good. They don't want to say God is good because that's tautologist. So they want to say his nature is good. And without that goodness, then there wouldn't be this either objective good, or there wouldn't be like some yardstick. That's what they typically want to say. Most theists want to say that. Occasionally you have somebody that says, but there's some goodness outside of God. But that means God needs to adhere to something outside of himself. That's kind of a rare view in my experience. They want to say God is this paradigm of goodness. And so you can't have goodness without God, or you can't have like an objective version of goodness without God. That's kind of what they want to refer to. But then you can run this Euthyphro and the further rebuttal that I offered now.
Cool. Thanks for that, Rob.
People who are following these commands, they're following it because Allah commanded it. So none of them believe this is unjust treatment. They believe this is, when Muslim women follow these commands, they know this is from God, and they know that it's just. And most of them actually know the reason behind it, but many people, they still just want to
How
follow
do they
the
know it's
desire.
just?
But the thing is,
Because
Yeah.
God tells them,
why?
right? How do they know it's just? Because God tells them. But that's the same as somebody in North Korea. When Kim Jong-un says you do something, and then you ask the North Korean, why did you do that? They say, because Kim Jong-un was just and he told me. Like, what's the difference? What's the relevant moral difference? I've asked this question. Do you know how they battle to answer this question as well? They tell me, oh, well, God created Kim Jong-un. I said, that's not a relevant moral difference. Tell me a relevant moral difference between Kim Jong-un and God. And they struggle to even understand the question. And when they do, they can't provide one.
Well,
Yeah, but Rob, now we have a situation. You have to ask somebody, why is this stupid attorney general in the States putting a completely innocent person into jail? Well, because Trump said so.
Well, yeah. And what makes Trump good? Oh, because he said he's good.
So.
Yeah. Now that's going to be, that's circular reasoning. If he pointed to his nature and said that, well, then we could say, but anybody could say the same. I'm good in virtue of my nature.
Exactly.
So
That's
you
the
need
whole
something
point.
more. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not men. This is what you said, which is a very feministic way to think about it, which is natural for someone who lives in the West to be influenced by Western ideologies and Western ideas. But the question is the man the same as a woman?
No.
Okay, so if we're different psychologically, physically, and in every way, literally almost, even in the way that we think or perceive ideas, or the way that...
I mean, we're not
This
different in
is so
every
terrible.
way. I mean, in virtually every way. That is absolute. But I mean, he's trying to make out as if like literally women are a different species to men or something. I mean, yes, there are some physiological differences and reproductive differences, and yeah, you can even argue some average psychological differences. Maybe again, I'm not an expert on neurochemistry and stuff like that, but yeah, okay, there are some differences. We're not identical, but again, where is this the justification there for saying women need to be basically locked up without a male guardian? You're taking a long jump from one position to the other. Yeah, and there's no sense that a woman's rights should be restricted. I mean, there's no sense that like a woman doesn't understand rights and responsibilities in any less of a way than a man. So again, I can usually when you restrict somebody's rights, it's because or at least some of the time it's going to be because you don't have the capacity maybe to understand, or other times where you make violations and you have caused harm to other, you're restricted to other. So I mean, there's various scenarios where you can have your rights reduced, but just being female, that is
Exactly.
it's just purely done on religious bigotry and commandments, and there's no external justification for it as far as I can see.
And I'm sorry, there are women who can run faster than me. So it's not always automatically the case that a man is physically superior to a woman. And none of those things can in any way stop me from having a professional discussion or conversation with a female. It's ludicrous. But this is all he's saying. He says a man cannot help himself. If he sees a woman, he immediately goes for sex with her. That's ridiculous.
It's disturbing.
we express ourselves. If we're different in all of these different aspects, then it would not make any sense for the treatment to be the same for a man and a woman. There has to be differences in the treatment because they're not the same. They're different. So when Allah, what men, for example, are attracted to in women is, number one, is the physical looks of a woman. This is how men are created. And there are...
I mean, again, this is such like ridiculous generalizations. I mean, as if women aren't also attracted by physical looks, and as if like that's always the first thing that a man is interested in. That's not the case. I mean, again, these ridiculous. Yeah, okay, that's true for some men, but it's not universal enough to be able to say, right, we need a law, therefore, to restrict women's rights. Because some people have this preference, and as if even if every single man that applied to, what's that got to do with his capacity for self-control, or the woman's right to pull out a taser if he starts acting inappropriately?
I think that's the key point, right? You don't want to restrict their rights because men can't control themselves. Rather, you want to restrict men's rights or punish men for not controlling themselves. I mean, this is obvious to most like rational people, maybe apart from this guy and some Muslims at least.
Well, the funny thing is, well, at the same time, well, I say at the same time, but in another breath on another conversation, they'll be saying, "Oh, women are just too emotional, and this is why they can't do this, and this is why they can't do that, and you need to have two of them counts as
I
a
had somebody
to
say that
one man."
today, Plastic. I had somebody
Yeah,
today who said to me that women have brain fog once a month because of the period, and that's why they need to have like help remembering things, as if men don't have this. And then somebody brought up the bell curve, right? The distribution of IQ across the curve. And there, on both ends of the spectrum for men, you have the stupidest and the smartest men. And then you've got this curve in the middle, whereas you have less stupid and less, like at the very high end, smart women, but they have a much better, they have a broader, like mid IQ, which would mean that they don't need to have as much help, whereas there's going to be far more men that need a lot of help at the low end of the scale. So, yeah, I don't know.
But it's just ironic. This constant sort of repetition of women are just kind of a slave to their emotions and stuff, and yet men are just so incapable of controlling themselves that women must essentially live under Islamic law their life as a prisoner without male protection. How do they square those two things? Like, and I'd really be interested, because I think the best they would probably say, and which is a dreadful response, would be something like, "Oh, well, that is an emotional response. That's just our natural reproductive response," or some bullshit like that. I can imagine them coming up. But no, this is an emotional response, and the consequences of it for women are far worse. So this actually says a lot about men. If we're going to take his generalizations about men and women seriously, this really suggests to me that he's advocating for something like Muslim men being not allowed near women, rather than the other way around. Let's keep the men in the house so that the women can walk around freely, because they're predators. So, but he wouldn't be advocating for that, would he? So,
And he's not addressing it in my eyes. He's not even saying what the oppression is and why it is justified. He doesn't say, okay, yes, women are not allowed this and this, or they are not able to provide the same level of witness in financial transactions because blah blah blah. He doesn't address any of those. He's just going for stereotypes.
yeah, it's very weak.
Studies on this. This is the first thing that they're attracted to. But for a woman, is not the case. This is not what they put as number one on the list of their attraction when it comes to the man.
Bullshit.
So then,
I mean, look, it would just be so ironic to me if this guy's. I don't know if this guy's married, but if his wife ends up cheating on him or something, he's really regret these words, isn't he? Like his supposedly more handsome neighbor or something is coming round. I mean, it's just again, it's just ridiculous kind of generalizations about what women like and what men like, and I just feel like you could end up suffering because of these words, my friend.
a woman, how a woman can dress would be different from how a man can dress, because the attraction is not the same. It's not symmetrical. We're not attracted to the same things. So because we're different, the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal will be different. It will be optimal for the situation of the man and situation of the woman. So whatever command that is there for.
Yeah, how is that optimal for the woman? No, it's optimal for the man. So therefore, if it's the woman who is considered to be deficient in some kind of emotional control, then we put restrictions on the women. If it's the man deficient in some kind of emotional control, we put the restrictions on the women still. So how is that fair? It's just so ridiculous. And yet
Tails I win, heads you lose. Yeah.
It really is that, isn't it? Yeah.
And the thing is, just listen how absolute everything is. You can't have this modicum of I don't know, tolerance and meet in the middle or something. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes that. No, it has to be absolute. And yes, normally you do have this that a man will look at a woman, and absolutely men appreciate the looks of a woman more than the other way around. Absolutely, but it's not always like that.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, on average, you can say yes. There's probably there's truth behind some of these stereotypes in terms of on average, but that just does not explain the totality of human behavior or human emotion and attraction. It's just a justification to try and say it's okay for us to keep restricting women no matter what. And then if that fails, we'll just say, well, Allah told us anyway, so tough luck.
Yeah, silly.
For a man that is not for a woman, it is because it befits her nature as a woman. And it is the best command or option or situation that she can be in. And the same for a man. Like when Allah says to a man, you have to go. And no one complains about that. It says, man, you have to go. Work, you have to provide for your woman. You have to provide housing and clothing and everything for her. She doesn't need to participate when it comes to the financial aspects of the relationship. This is your responsibility. You have to protect her. If any danger, you're responsible for her. You are a shepherd, and you will be responsible for your.
Yeah, but a woman is capable of doing all those things. So this is just not just.
This is
I mean,
7th century.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. You might be able to argue on some level, yes. I mean, back then or whatever, you could maybe justify this a little bit more. I don't personally think so, but yes, I understand that the conditions were different back then. But we've come a long way in the last 1400 years. Or I say we've come a long way, everybody apart from these dawah guys and this crap that they're spewing. And the irony is, I also see like these, I've seen various chat forums, stuff like that, where you get these young Muslim guys that are complaining because the Muslim women, certainly in Western countries, seem to be outperforming the men in education. They're getting good jobs and stuff like that. They're getting high-end careers. And it's kind of destroying this myth that they believe that women are just so much inferior to them. They haven't got the mental capacity to do all this. And it's like, well, once you actually give women the opportunities, they seem to be doing just fine. So it's just ironic that life experience shows that these Quranic commandments are at best dubious and at worst just provably wrong.
Flock. So if any danger takes place, you are the one responsible. You need to protect, even if you're going to lose your life in that fight. So these are things that Allah commands the man, and you don't see the men coming complaining, "Oh, why did Allah? This is oppressive." No one says that. We accept, okay, Allah told me I have to work. My life is going to be.
Oh, it's oppressive to defend your loved ones. I mean, what a burden that's put on you. And I mean, again, how often does this? Because I do find this ironic again, because when you look at the conditions back then, obviously it was a more violent world in general. I mean, even in the worst countries, again, compared to say 1,000 years ago, you're probably going to be doing better off in terms of the level of violence and stuff like that, level of poverty. So again, you can almost sort of say, yeah, that might represent a bigger burden back then. But now, I mean, he's talking about, oh yeah, well, I've got to provide this, got to provide that, and it's like, well, are you getting attacked on the streets of London that often, Mr. Muslim Lantern? I don't think you are. I mean, when do these burdens actually come up in your real life? Yet you would impose the very burdens on women on a day-by-day basis if you had the power to do so. You would have them wrapped up in those, burqas. You would have them imprisoned in their home without guardians. And you wouldn't have to deal with any of these so-called burdens that the men are supposed to deal with. So again, it's just highly convenient, isn't it?
And what if the man is the nurse and the wife is the doctor, professor, I don't know what, in the clinic? She makes double the salary. She's the one who has much more responsibility. And then what?
Well, perhaps that shouldn't happen, huh? Under their view or something.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that. You're not allowed to do that.
Don't shut us up by being more successful than me. You go back in the kitchen. That's the mentality, isn't it? Yeah.
Because no one is gonna come and give me, mahr, marital gift, and then pay my rent and pay my food. No one is gonna do that for me as a man. I have to go and work.
Really? Not like you can't get housing benefit or something. Again, I just find it ironic that
this is
like this, like as if there isn't state benefits that can help you with that kind of thing. Oh no, I'm just a man facing the burden on my own. No, you might not have a job and you can get benefits. So, anyways.
And because I'm a man, these are the commands that I need to keep up with. Therefore, I follow because of I know this is what works for me as a man. Allah knows my nature. Allah knows the best option for me and what I should be doing and what I should be doing.
Okay, that makes sense. But I guess it's just more like evident as to how the women are treated differently. But I have another.
That's a brilliant line because that's quite cutting, isn't it? And I think this really pisses him off as well because it's kind of like, yeah, your explanation is fine, but it just shows how shit we're treated. So that's the implication I'm getting from what she says there, anyway. And it triggers him a bit.
Okay. No, I can't let you. I can't let you move on there, right? Because like you made a comment there. So can you tell me evident where? Which place?
Like I'm just and maybe it's because like I'm a girl, but I don't see as much men having to follow specific like rules or guidance or things like that.
Okay, have you been but you said how women are treated. You didn't say it about men. But have you been to a Muslim country?
No.
Okay, so how is it evident when you've not even been to one country? Okay.
I mean, he's got to be kidding with that. I mean, you can just look at Iran and the women that have been killed for removing their hijabs and stuff like that. You could look no further than that as concrete evidence that women get the raw end of the deal. And yet he's going to play stupid like this and pretend like things like that are not going on. Oh, it's insulting.
Yeah, you can just look on the news or whatever, right? It's silly to Like, if you haven't been there, you can't comment. That's obviously ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just mean like from what I've learned in Islam, like for example, they're allowed to go out alone. They don't need a guardian to travel, like stuff like that. Like
Okay, let me ask you this question. When it comes to physicality, if I bring a 20-year-old woman and a 15-year-old boy and they fight, who's gonna win?
I don't
Generally,
know.
generally, in most cases, who's gonna win?
I guess the guy.
Okay, why is he gonna win? Because he's got a physical nature that is God-given that the woman does not have.
Mhm.
He's got muscle mass, more muscle mass, faster reaction speed, tissues, muscle tissues, and all of these things.
Yeah, and I'll go back to, if you give her a taser, none of that shit's going to matter, is it? Because she will be able to defend herself. But you don't advocate for that, leveling the playing field. You just advocate for keeping her as a prisoner.
So if they're not the same when it comes to the physicality and power and who can overcome the other, then one can be allowed to go out nighttime and he is able to protect himself, and one would not be. Doesn't that make sense?
Oh my God.
Well, look, you could also say, okay, so every disabled person then must be locked up as well, because they can't be, if you've got a physical disability that reduces your ability to be able to look after yourself, you shouldn't be allowed out of the house, including men, if that is going to be your logic for this. Does he advocate for that? I don't think he does.
Well, also, the
Look
other
at the
thing, I need to look it
environment.
up again. Oh, no, go ahead, Stops.
Oh, I was going to wait for you now. Okay, the picture that he paints is one of lawless thugs roaming the streets, only looking for single women that they can go and abuse. Come on, reality today is different. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's good. And I agree with that. And also, I think there was a study, I have to look for it again, that, men typically face more violence than women do anyway. They're typically going to get into more fights, etc. So there was a statistic, I don't know if it was in the US or the UK or both, but if you look at statistics, men are more likely to be involved in violence. So should they stay at home or, cover up, or like not go to the pub or whatever the case is to avoid violence, stay away from each other? I mean,
Well, also you could do the thing of, okay, well, look, on average, if you as a man have less than average strength, shouldn't you also not be allowed out?
Yeah,
Because
true.
you could get beaten up by
That's
a
the
stronger guy.
consequence.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can keep slicing this down. There is no logic to this when you really look at all the caveats that you could put on here. So this idea that it's for protection, again, and I don't want to dismiss the idea that, yes, potentially, I mean, there is truth, obviously, that on average, a woman will be more vulnerable. I'm not going to lie. Obviously, my own partner, when she's out, I would be, say, more concerned than she would be for me if I'm out, although we live in a safe neighborhood, so I don't really have that much of a concern. But yes, okay, I can understand if you were taking it out of its religious context and just putting it into a general situation where you'd have more concern. But that doesn't mean that I would want to imprison my partner. I would just want her to, know how to look after herself and just keep her in the house all day. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's like, even if you can recognize there's a kernel of truth to women being more vulnerable in that situation, their solution is just like the sledgehammer tactic. Let's just fuck up her life by keeping her indoors pretty much all the time. Because there are some predatory men out there. It's a terrible way to organize society, in my mind. All right, enough ranting.
Yeah. Okay. Also, I had a question about why are men allowed to marry within other religions but women are not?
The simple reason Allah Azza wa Jal said so. He allowed it, therefore it's allowed. That's it.
Did you get that? Just straight away. He's not even trying to justify it at this point. It's just straight away because Allah allows it. That's it. That's all he needs. Sorry, Stops. I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, there is. I don't know if he's going to go into it, because there is a reason. Because the man is supposed to go and convert the woman, and so that the children can grow up with the man's religion, which is Islam, and the other way around. Because the man is a Christian or or Hindu or whatever, he will automatically convert the woman, because the woman is so fragile and so totally unable to defend her own religion or her own beliefs, that the children are then going to be brought up in the other religion, which is bad for Islam. That's why you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah, I think he does get onto those points. But
I
yeah.
thought he's going to leave it at that. And I
No, we
said
don't
so.
go into it a
Amen.
bit more, but yeah, I mean, you've correctly predicted where he was going to go with his stops. I don't think that makes you a prophet. I just think that makes you experience with Darwin bullshit. But
What a pity.
oh, someone, Quran only fans, you need to keep both channels going. Chat's great stuff. Yeah, look, I mean, to be honest, just to quickly address this,
But it's not up to us.
in case anybody missed at the start and they've come in, they've missed the introduction. This will be my last episode hosting and Stop's last episode co-hosting. We've kind of finished our little revival here. Previous host Nick is going to be coming back to carry on doing some pre-recorded shows and
Inshallah.
stuff. All the old things. So the channel will be going. It's just that I've tried, all right, and I've just neglected my channel so badly because there is only so much time I can devote to doing stuff on Islam. And the last 6 months have basically just been mostly here. I've only done a few videos on my own channel, so I really do need. And this was only supposed to be temporary anyway. We're only going to do 10 episodes, and I think this is number 32 now. You've definitely had your money's worth out of us, I have to say. But yeah, Nick is going to be carrying on, so the channel will keep going. And there's plenty of the classic episodes going up, so stay subscribed, but just come over to my channel as well. And as I say, we might come back for a Christmas special or something like that, but it's not been decided.
But I'm sorry to have to say, no, but they're going to miss our joint humor. This is what's going to be different.
Yes, we are a pretty good comedy duo, I think.
With Bob too, come on.
We'll probably get a
Laurel
ton
and
of
Hardy. Indeed.
We'll probably get a ton of comments now on the video saying, "No, you're shit. You're not funny at all." Anyways, right, let's carry on with this. We've got about how many minutes left? We've got about 6 minutes or something of this left.
Oh shit!
But it's not other religions. It's only Judaism,
The
Christianity.
Judaism and Christianity.
Yeah. So if a woman is a Hindu, or a woman is not a believer, is an atheist, or any type of polytheist, fire worshipper, multiple god worshipper, any of these different things, worship stars, and still he's not allowed to marry her. But the Jews and the Christian women, first, as I said, the main and most important reason is Allah Azza wa Jal commanded it. Now, what wisdom some scholars have spoken about, for example, the fact that we are very close to the Christian and Jewish women in their...
Sorry, I just want to quickly interrupt just on something he said. Oh yeah, these other women aren't allowed for us, the polytheists and the star worshippers or whatever the hell he was saying. They are available as sex slaves, though, under Sharia, so we shouldn't forget that little tidbit, which he would actually support. Just think it's worth throwing that in there.
In their beliefs. So we believe in the same prophets, most of the same prophets we believe in. We believe in the hellfire and heaven. The commands, most of them are similar. We have the commonalities between the prophets and all of these different things. So it's very easy for a woman, if she lives with a Muslim man, to accept Islam, to become a Muslim in the future.
This is worth highlighting, actually, because I mean, I've made this point before. I'm sure you guys have had it as well. But I think the reason that they get any success with the few Christians that they do in converting is because of this reason. I think there's an acknowledgement there, essentially, to say that because we've plagiarized Christianity and Judaism to such an extent, they're already going to be familiar. So it'd be a much easier job if we married them to convert them over, because we'll just give them a line of bullshit about, oh no, we like Jesus as much as you do. In fact, we love him even more. And people buy into that rubbish. And so, yeah, there is a sense that because you've basically attached yourself to existing religion, they're much easier prey for conversion. Now, I still think it's pretty weak because the rate is so low in terms of actual conversions. But yeah, I think he's kind of accidentally revealed a reality about this whole conversion thing and why you want to marry, because it is a way of like trying to spread the religion as well amongst the non-believers. I'm not sort of saying like, I'm not accusing Muslims of trying to manipulate women into marriage or anything like that. I know these claims get thrown around, but certainly it's a useful tool to be able to try and spread if you can convince a non-Muslim woman to marry you. Yeah, they are the easy prey because you basically copied about 3/4 of their religion. So
that's a very easy thing because there's already a lot of commonalities between you and that woman. But even though this is the case, Allah Azza wa Jalla has still put conditions. He said the woman has to be chaste, which means she's either a virgin or she doesn't sleep around with men. And 99% of the women in the West today, they're every day with a different man, And obviously, I'm exaggerating when I say a different day, but you know what.
Do you hear that lovely line? Now, could you imagine if some equivalent comment was said about Muslim women, which would, on the face of it, sound pretty offensive? Now, I know none of us really do too much of a bother about being offended by this kind of stuff. We just see it as par and course. But he's literally just said 99% of Western women are sleeping with a different man every night. And he says, yes, okay, I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but this is basically generally what he believes. And I think we should consider this groomer language. This should be considered groomer gang language, because this is the justification that we've seen when, say, Muslim grooming gangs and stuff have targeted non-Muslims. It's like, oh, they're all just whores. They're all just slags. They're sleeping around anyway. They love it. So we're going to abuse them. So I really actually want to put some effort into whenever I hear this now. I'm saying that this is groomer gang like support as far as I'm concerned, because this is where it's part of the reason I think this has happened. It's the mentality this is sprung from. It's just saying that non-Muslim women just have no value because they are just sleeping with men like every single night. And I mean, it really is horrible rhetoric when you can think it could have that kind of knock-on consequence. Sorry, another bit of a rant there, but I just...
No, but this is a good point, actually, because it is this part of the mentality. If they're sleeping around, why not me? It works like that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they're always here and there. So if this is the case, they don't fit the criteria of what Islam allows anyways. So if a woman is like this, she commits fornication and she does it, and she continuously does it, this woman is not permissible for a Muslim man, because Allah has put...
Well, as a wife, but you can still have her as a sex slave. And Rising Damp made a point here. What rights do female slaves get? They're not even allowed to cover themselves. They're open for sexual harassment and can't refuse the advances of a master. Whereas the Islamic morality here, yeah, no, absolutely, because despite all the claims that Islam is this one, the slavery is so good it's not even slavery, and people want to be part of it. This kind of abuse you are open to, absolutely, particularly if you're a woman. So, yeah, it's a good point.
That she has to be chaste. And the second thing, she has to believe in her religion, her book is from God. So there's a lot of cultural Christian women that claim that, you know what, I'm Christian, but I don't believe in the Bible. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't go to the church. What they mean by Christian, they have baptism sometime when they were like 2 or 3, So that...
I don't think there's too many Christians who say they're Christian, but they don't believe in Jesus. I think that tends to be like one of the main things they'll hold on to, even if they've got some sort of, personalized version of it and what that means. But yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a side point, but it was a stupid thing to say, I think.
That does not mean Christian from an Islamic perspective. So when Allah allows Jew or Christian, these two conditions still apply. And as I said, the wisdoms of scholars have said is this idea is much easier for the woman to accept. And even if she doesn't, the children will follow the religion of the father. The father is the leader of the household. Therefore, the children will follow his example. But if a woman if we now flip the roles now, and a woman is a Muslim and she's with a non-Muslim man, for example, Muslims fast Ramadan. It's a whole month. And when you fast, you cannot have intercourse. Now, no non-Muslim man would want to wait 1 month while his wife, she wants to fast in a religion that he doesn't believe in.
I love that. No non-Muslim man could wait a month without having sex with that.
And it's not true.
But
he's lying.
What about like late stages of pregnancy, for example? I mean, that's maybe not the easiest times to have sex with your wife, but yeah, again, the irony is, like, despite wanting to lock women up because of the predatory nature of men, and really he's reflecting poorly on Muslim men. He's now going to accuse non-Muslim men of just not being able to, not basically
control themselves.
So again, it is this phrase that I've heard a lot now, but it's kind of like, every accusation is a confession, and I just feel like, yeah, this is a complete projection in terms of your mentality. You can't understand that there are men who don't treat women like that. He just doesn't understand it.
And he's lying, because even during Ramadan you can have sex, just not during the day.
Yeah, but stops. He's pretty much saying exactly what you predicted as well, in terms of, oh well, if you're the father of the household and you're a non-Muslim, then you're going to being raised as Muslims, whereas you're a Muslim.
He's still not really addressing why it says in the Quran that the man is a degree above the woman. This is the real oppression in my eyes. And that the woman has to obey the man. This is very, very prevalent in lots of Quran sentences.
It is, and I think one of the sad things is I don't even think they touch on those two things, even though you're right, or even wife beating, and you can't but if your husband approaches you, then you have to accept sex, otherwise the angels curse you. And
there's a lot of things he doesn't.
I mean, there's a lot worse than we've talked about. Yeah. So
There's so
thing,
many
look,
things,
look,
isn't
look
there?
at what happened with Rob and me when we had this total crash, when we had this Muslim come on who absolutely defended that a man can have sex with his wife, with his female slave, even if she's married. And for me, this was beyond everything. This blew my mind, and I couldn't anymore. This was like, I was so distraught from that. It was absolutely unbelievably callous what this guy did.
he was a Muhammad Hijab disciple, as I remember. Rob, I've seen you
I
on
can't
several times. Were you trying to say something and then we kept interrupting?
Oh, no. I was listening to you guys. But there's so many things with the woman. I was just looking up because today somebody put it to a Sunni Muslim about the I think it's in the hadith, isn't it? About a nation will fail if it's ruled or led by a woman. I don't think it's in the Quran. I have to look it up. And he asked the Muslim, do you agree with this? And the Muslim goes, well, and he quoted at least some scholars who accepted this, right, for whatever reasons. And the Muslim said, well, no, I've got to do my research on this. But this is typically a Muslim who will accept, the majority consensus of scholars or whatever the case is. But suddenly when confronted with something like that, because he's born in the UK, and lived here all of his life, suddenly he had to do some sort of research. And I did ask him, what sort of research are you going to do that's going to put you out of accord with, the majority of Sunni Muslims, if that hadith is accepted and they've ruled on it? Like, what research are you going to do to come along and say, no, they're all wrong. I'm no such thing. It's just not true or something. So, this is what happens when if you know some of these verses and you put it to these people, then they have to dance around.
Absolutely, yeah. I just wanted to, sorry, I just noticed Quran Only fans comment here. Slight side note, but the Muslim light bulb apparently charges people $300 to $400 for counselling sessions. Have to ask if he's qualified. Is that, has he
Come on.
confirmed? I mean, look, not that, I'm not saying that I don't believe you or anything like that, but I think, wouldn't he be breaking the law if he's doing that?
Well, if you do it under coaching, depends. I think he's in America. Is he, or where's he based?
Well, see, this is a question. I thought he was based in the UK, but it seems he travels back and forth. So I think he is actually living somewhere in an Arabic country, but he won't say. But he comes to the UK a lot to do dawah.
Oh, really? It's a shame it doesn't come on Clubhouse because we'd be interested
believe
to
me.
have a go there. But if you put it under coaching, right? So if you don't put it under, if it doesn't fall under like strict psychology or whatever, where there might well be, stricter rules. So if you have a more broadening under coaching, then you can kind of almost do what you want there. Somebody would have to show that you've caused like, severe damage in their life by giving them some sort of coaching that failed them. So that's how you can kind of get away with it. One way, at least, you can get away with this sort of stuff.
Could you imagine being coached by this guy? I mean, a Muslim woman turns up and says, "My husband was beating me," and he's just like, "Yeah, Alice says that's okay. That'd be $400, please."
Well, I had a guy where I said, okay, there was some animosity between the two channels and blah, blah, blah. So I tried to go in and said, okay, why don't we sit down for half an hour and just talk about, I don't know, football or something ridiculous without, being at each other's throat. Just to as an olive branch. And he came back and he said, yeah, but you need to pay me $100. Just for a half an hour chat.
Good Lord. Anyways, right, let's carry on with this. We just got a few minutes left of this, so we'll see what else he's got.
He will enforce his own views on the children. He is the leader of the household. And also he will influence her ideas and her understanding, which is very natural. So again, it all comes back to this idea. If you put it in your mind, look, men and women are not the same. Therefore, treatment with them has to be different. Then these ideas become much easier to understand when you look at the nature of a man and the nature of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I can mention a lot more stuff, but I wouldn't even, like, for example, when it comes to intercourse and the things done in the intercourse, how the intercourse is done. There are many things that are prohibited from Islamic perspective. The man would say, I don't care what your religion says. I want to do this. I don't care your religion says this specific act cannot be done in this way. He doesn't care. He wants to enjoy himself. This is his wife.
See, so this is even worse now. He's basically saying that a non-Muslim man who marries a Muslim woman is essentially going to force unconsenting sexual acts on his wife. Which goes against religion. This is what he's saying. This is how he imagines the world actually works. So I don't know exactly what sort of acts he's talking about. And when you read some of the things that you are able to do in hadiths with even non-human partners. I think it's kind of ironic you'd be saying that, but I just feel like how much if this was anyone saying this about the Muslim world, he'd be screaming about Islamophobia and how this is terrible racism and bigotry. Yet he just makes these claims about non-Muslim men as if they're just all kind of, you know, degenerates and they're going to be forcing unconsenting sex on their wives and all this kind of thing, even though the Quran essentially gives you that right for Muslim men to do it. And I still wouldn't even make that claim about Muslim men in general, because that would just be stupid bigotry. And he's quite happy to do this because fundamentally it is a supremacist ideology. He is kind of, you know, a version of the far right, these dawah guys. And so they've got no problem with just labeling everyone you know, degenerate or, you know, essentially a sexual predator like that. I mean, it's kind of sick, but again, it's the Muslim lantern and he's the champion of the dawah world at the moment. So we've got to keep critiquing him.
So it's very problematic, basically. Yeah.
Okay. And I have one last question, and it's quite a specific question. So the reason I have this question is because I recently gave birth, and I gave birth to a baby girl. And so my question is, do I have to shave off her hair? And if I do, what is the logical reasoning behind this?
No, you don't have to do it. Okay. Like this is like this is a sunnah. Like it's a sunnah, which means it's a recommended act.
Oh,
right?
okay, so it's recommended.
I have to say, if I've come across this before, it slipped my mind. Were you particularly aware of this? You have to shave a baby girl's hair off when she's born? I've not heard of this before, but
No.
I don't know about you, Rob. Have you heard this one before? Rob, you still with us, or are you falling asleep? All right, we'll move on. I don't know if Rob's having technical issues, but yeah. Okay, I was just curious about this. To be honest, it's a bit of a weird question, but I've left it in because his long-term answer to this is just brilliant. It just sums up this whole video for me.
But it's not
it's
like.
recommended. But again, yeah, it's recommended from Allah Azza wa Jal. It's not necessary for you to do. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. Like it's not like. But it's an act of sunnah. But the thing is this: when you say what is the logical reason behind this, there is an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
The assumption is that there has to be a logical justification that fits what you think is logical for every command in Islam. That's the assumption, because otherwise that question would not make any sense. Because if Allah commanded it and there is no need for me to have a logical justification, I'm not going to be asking for one.
So I mean, that's it right there, isn't it? It just like logic doesn't matter. Fundamentally, this is what he's saying. It doesn't matter if it's completely contradictory. It doesn't matter if it's completely immoral. It doesn't matter as long as you have accepted this. You just have to go along with all the bullshit. And even if you haven't, we still think that it's logical. You know, we still don't care that it's not logical. It's just Allah says it, so we do it.
I don't know how many times it says in the Quran, obey and fear Allah.
Yeah, I don't know. Rise and Damp says you have to weigh the hair and give the same amount in gold to charity when you shave the baby girl's head.
That's not a lot, is
I've
it?
never heard of this stuff. Rise and Damp, if you know the hadith number or anything, if you happen to have that, then stick it in the chat, 'cause I'd be curious to read that one. But yeah, just to get back to just to openly say, I don't care about any form of critical thinking. I mean, to me, this is a definitive statement about why not only is he a complete cretin, but why I see Islamic ideology is so dangerous, because it's not just this guy. This is prevalent amongst every single dawah apologist that I've ever seen. All of them basically got some version of this mentality, and he's just saying it explicitly here. But you'll get the same if you dig deep. You know, if you talk to Muhammad Ajab, Ali Dawah, EF Dawah clowns, and Hamza, whatever, they all say the same thing. And it's terrible that people were just not using their minds. Like they actually think you're stupid for trying to think logically about it. It's I mean, this is where we're at. I mean, we wonder why there are so many problems with Islam in the world.
But there's an assumption for many people is that there has to be a logical explanation given to me that fits my understanding for every command in order for me to do that command. Then you're not worshiping God, you're worshiping your own desires, you're worshiping your intellect. Do you understand? So if
no, you're just questioning things. That's not the same thing. You are reasonably questioning things. Which I mean, didn't Allah give you this brain to try and reason with it? Isn't that the best thing about humans? They've got the capacity to reason, and yet you just don't do that. That's a waste of time. Just I mean, what does that mean? Worshipping your own desires. Thinking now is worshipping your own desires.
Yeah, just assessing what you've been told. You can take everything on faith, I guess, but then don't come here and try and make rational arguments. Otherwise, you're just being a hypocrite or demanding other people give you rational arguments. If you're just going to accept it because he tells you, typically sophisticated theists, I don't think this guy's one, although he probably thinks he is, want to give reasons additional to because God said so, right? Because they realize some of the pitfalls of saying that. You could say that about anything that's more powerful than you. And again, this is why I said to you guys today and yesterday, I happened to mention it. Show me that God is all good, or give me, tell me how you know it's the case that God is all good. Because otherwise, all you're doing is following somebody that has more power than you. That doesn't follow from that they're good. In fact, in our experience, in the human experience, powerful people are oftentimes not good. So if we're going to use that, then we should think that God isn't all good unless you can have independent reasons from because he said so or because he's defined it in a book or something. But yeah.
Absolutely. No, and the thing is, though, I mean, Rob, on so many other videos, this guy chastises people who come to question him because he says, "Oh, atheism is not logical. Christianity is not logical. Your worldview is not logical. Your claim about this is not logical." It's kind of like, well, you really are kind of, this is like throwing, people in glass houses should throw stones because you are just dismissing logic as having any value really at all, apart from this false claim that you can logically prove that the Quran is from God, which you obviously can't for just so many reasons. But because that, you just think that is that all the value is for logic is there. All other thinking can then just cease. And yet he will still throw that out. You're being illogical. You're being irrational. You're being emotional. That is his mantra.
Obviously, he's got to demonstrate it, right? You can say it to your heart's content. You may have gullible Muslims who'll follow it up, and Yumian stops, and others will go, just give me your argument. Don't keep telling me. Just show, don't tell. Nobody cares about you telling somebody. Show them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is why we've done quite a few on this guy to deconstruct him over the last month or two. So we're doing our best, but yeah, he's quite prolific in his content creation. So, anyways, right, let's do the last little bit of this, and then we'll sum up.
If it makes sense to my intellect, I'm going to do it. If it does not make sense to my intellect, I'm not going to do it. And the fact is, you can do this with any command in Islam. You can have a never-ending process. For example, why is it 5 prayers? And if it was 6, you will say, why is it 6 prayers? If it's 10, a person.
Yeah, but that's a good point, though, isn't it? You can't actually answer that question other than just God told us, even though God didn't initially tell us. Apparently, what was it supposed to be, 500 prayers or 50 prayers? I can't even remember. And then Muhammad went to negotiate and got it down to 5 or something.
50. But the thing is, you are told in the Quran to use, and this is the favorite of Hamza Sotus, use your akal, use your intellect. As soon as you do that, you do ask for justification. You do ask, you demand an explanation for why it is that I should be doing that. And that is exactly what it is, using the God-given brain. And if you're not allowed to do that, why provide you with a brain? Then you might as well be an angel, because angels are not allowed to question anything. What's the point?
Well, it's also like Abbas on the EF Dawah channel. I mean, he constantly, like, they do live streams all the time saying, come here and give us your questions. And then when they can't answer it, they just say, you shouldn't really be giving these questions. Just accept it. You don't want you don't want to say anything that is going to make you doubt your faith. Just like, yeah, ask questions unless we can't answer it, then it's a bad thing. I mean, just how can you be credible and just have this mentality? It's just...
Another person will come and say, why is it 10 prayer? So there are certain things that we would call, there's 2 types of commands in Islam. Things which are ta'abbudi, means we do as an act of worship. For example, the one you mentioned about shaving the head. This is an act of worship. And then there is other things that Allah might tell you the reason and the wisdom behind them. These 2 types of things. But the important thing, what you need to establish with logical reasoning, is whether Islam is the truth or not.
Yeah, which is what you can't do. I mean, you really can't. It is the thing that fails the most. I mean, you might be able to offer certain commands or certain things within Islam. You might be able to offer some kind of logical defense for them. They're often completely unconvincing to any of us, but you might be able to get there. But saying that you can prove logically that Islam is from God, that the Quran is from God, you are so far away from that. You may as well be in a different fucking universe. And
you can't say that Islam is the truth. A statement can be true, a claim can be true, but you can't say democracy is true or whatever. That's impossible to do. Come on. I mean, what is this guy's problem?
Oh well, they're legion, but
And what he says, it's sunnah. Well, what is also sunnah? Ask the girl, did she cut her baby girl's clitoris? Because it's sunnah to be cut.
yeah. But also, why is God giving commands that some of them, if you don't follow them, it's a terrible sin, and others are just like he doesn't really care if you do it or not. So he's saying like, oh yeah, you don't have to do this. Well, then why is God giving that as a command then? He'd like you to, but he doesn't care that much about it that he's going to punish you or anything if you don't do it. So what's the point? It just doesn't make any sense.
Just on, yeah, just on a separate note there, well, a related note, I guess, Rising Dan put up there, right? The knuckle, divine knowledge supersedes the akal, human reasoning. That seems sort of backwards to me, because in order to get knowledge, you have to be able to reason to it, unless you're talking about some sort of knowledge that is beyond reason. So, any or most information you're going to appeal to is going to be due to some sort of reasoning. Even if it's what might be called a priori, before experience type reasoning, you still require human reasoning to make sense of it. So yeah, that seems. I'm not saying he's saying so, but if that's the idea, then again, Islam seems to have it backwards, as far as I can tell.
And
yeah,
I was using.
I think Rising Damp is just saying that's the reasoning that they would give.
Yeah. And I was just
Yes. No,
I was being facetious.
That,
I was using the dawah argument against them.
Oh, and you seem to have somebody who knows you by your name here, Stops.
Hi, Dennis. Yeah.
Right, we've got 90 seconds. Let's plow on through.
Once you've established that with logical reasoning and evidences, then you cannot be questioning every single thing, because you already now accepted this is literally God's command. You get the point? Once I establish this is from God, then I know God is speaking there. So if God is speaking there, I'm not going to be asking God every single thing He tells me to do. Why should I do it and I shouldn't do it?
Yeah, but there's false reasoning in that, because the point is, if you can come across something which really is completely illogical, then that is suddenly, even if you have been persuaded that Islam is true, if you come across something that you can't make sense of, there is another option there. Maybe Islam is not true. And how are you going to rule that out? See, so this is why this reasoning is so bad, because he's basically just saying once you've accepted Islam, you have to accept everything in it. No, you could have accepted something which, for bad reasons, which was wrong. And then you come across something which enlightens you to that fact, and then you would leave, which is kind of, the story of most ex-Muslims, isn't it, really? So, but, and this is why I think he's promoting this idea, because it's kind of like, yeah, once you've accepted, that's it. You should never question anything again, because we don't want you to leave, because there is so much contradiction and so much problematic morality and everything else, that it is going to naturally lead people to say, well, is this actually from a God if this is supposed to be so merciful, etc. So, but yeah, just on the face of it, that is problematic reasoning. You are denying the possibility that actually this thing that contradicts Islam might be because Islam is not true. And if you throw that away, you are basically just throwing your brain in the bin.
Details of very specific things, like what you mentioned about shaving the head of a babe.
Mhm.
So once you understand this concept, okay, I need first evidence that Islam is the truth. Okay, I've got evidence that Islam is the truth. I believe it's from God. Then I would follow what God commands, because He's God. He's the all-knowing, the all-wise. He is like the creator. He's the one who created me, and I'm in this life to obey and worship the creator.
Okay.
But when you ask that question, you say, "Do I have to shave?" Like, it seems like you're very close to Islam. So
I mean, I just got to say, right, that reasoning, if we were to follow that reasoning, right, okay, I was convinced that this was true. Therefore, I'm just going to ignore everything else that might contradict it, because it's just automatically true now that I've accepted it. We would literally have a zero scientific or just knowledge progress in general ever. We would still be thinking that the Earth was flat, because you could just say, well, despite all this mountain of evidence that really makes it impossible for the Earth to be flat, well, we accepted it at one point, so, it just must be true.
Yeah.
I just don't see how we can get away with this, like people not questioning this.
or you want to accept Islam or something like that. Is that the case?
Like I said, like I've so basically for the last year and a half I've been really looking into it, but it's just been taking me a while to like fully accept everything that I've learned about it, which is why I wanted to join your live and kind of ask some of those questions that I have hesitations with.
Okay. Is there any other thing that you still have hesitation with,
Not that I can think of today.
Okay, no problem. So you're welcome. Yeah,
but thank you so much for answering everything.
Yeah, no problem. I hope the answers were satisfactory, And you're welcome to come another time if you got more questions about Islam. And I do like we always welcome anyone to Islam. You know, if anytime you want to accept Islam, you want to become Muslim, you're welcome to come on. Or you're welcome to speak to Muslims. If you have Muslims around you who can help you do it. Basically, we welcome everyone, you know, everyone and anyone.
Not
Islam is a
me.
religion for everyone and anyone.
Yeah, I mean that is basically it. I mean the questions were not answered satisfactorily by any of our standard, and to be fair, she didn't sound all that convinced either. I mean, if this woman actually, bearing in mind this is a slightly older video, I think this is from last year, so if she did convert to Islam, I'd be surprised if she's there for longer than like a month, because if this is going to convince you, well, either you are really gullible, and to be honest, she does sound like she's fairly inquisitive on this, at least. I can't see this being a long-term convert. So yeah, so that is the end. So I will take this down, and we can have maybe a little bit of a summary on the craziness with what's tonight. Stops, Rob, if either of you want to kind of sum up.
I came in a bit late, but I mean, again, it's these funny ideas of trying to restrict women, thinking that women are different, and that's a reason to restrict them, and or essentially have misogyny going on under a different name. And like you say, I don't know if this guy's married or not, but sort of a young guy, but he's the typical sort of young brash Muslim that fancies this. There's a guy that I speak to fairly regularly on Clubhouse, who's a Muslim who's got his own way of interpreting the Quran, who I invited on here, but he was a bit cautious of coming on here, who would take issue with this guy, kind of like we would, but he's got his own crazy ideas separately. And so I think, you know, it's just another reason not to. And I wish, when I was listening to this woman, I wish she would come on here, that we could have a chat to. For everybody that goes onto channels like that, it's a shame they couldn't come on here and speak to us, so that we could, you know, give the other side. And I would always say to people, and that's how one of the guys deconverted in Morocco when he spoke to me over a period of time. I said, go speak to the Muslims and then come back and speak to me. And he said, oh, Rob, when I went to them, they know you. And they said, don't go speak to Rob anymore. I said, well, that should tell you something, right? I'm telling you, go speak to them, speak to me for yourself, ask questions on both sides, and then try to make an informed decision, right? And so I wish more people, you know, would find their way here, but obviously we're not big enough for that. And so we could give the other side. But again, always a pleasure. Thank you guys for doing so many shows together. And hopefully I speak for everybody else to say, you know, congratulations on doing so many shows. Hopefully we'll do more together again. And you guys have been amazing doing all the shows you've done. So yeah, hopefully we get together, but it's always a pleasure to be with you guys.
Oh, cheers, and thanks for coming on, Rob. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we will definitely. I mean, look, this is part of the reason that I want to concentrate more on my own channel. I've got a larger subscriber base, and I think I can reach more people. And us three have done various collaborations on there before, so yeah, I'm going to try and build it up now, especially as Nick is coming back over here. But yeah, it's always great when Rob comes on. Stops. Do you have any words of wisdom to add to this?
No, I would just like to ask her two questions, and that is, why is she looking at Islam, and what is her expectation? What would she like to have, and why does she need it? That's all, because I don't see it. I mean, what has Islam done for anyone in the last 100 years? There's nothing there. So I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Rising Damp asks, will you be keeping a Friday live stream on my channel? No, I really do want to have it on a different day, to be honest. Ideally a Wednesday. I'd rather do it midweek, because I don't know, Friday just doesn't seem to be that good for people watching live. I mean, we do get okay viewerships on most of the videos that we've done here, but I'd like to actually have a larger live audience. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try Wednesdays. I'm going to try Sundays and see how things go. But I'd like a little bit more participation. And that's no disrespect, because we have had some very good nights here where we've had 20, 30, some, I think we got up to 50 live, which is pretty, you know, it's not too bad considering, you know, it's a small channel. I'd like to try and just increase it and have it as a platform for, well, kind of like what Rob was saying as well. If people can come on, whether they're Muslims, ex-Muslims, people who are considering joining, considering leaving, whatever. I want to try and sort of make it more accessible for people, and to maybe get those kind of conversations going. I mean, obviously, I'll be focusing mainly on doing dawah review videos, and Hopefully Stocks and Rob will pop in from time to time, and maybe a couple of other people. But yeah, it will be unlikely to carry on a Friday unless for some reason I get loads of people asking me to do so. Oh, Hassan, hi guys, nice to see Rob too. Sorry I caught this late. Well, yeah, I mean, you're catching us late. I mean, it's very late, Hassan, because this is the last show that we're doing. In case you missed earlier, I'll just quickly repeat one more time. Nick will be taking over. He will be doing some pre-recorded shows, so look for the video tab, not the live stream tab. We may come back to give you a little Christmas cracker of a special show around that time, but yeah, we're pretty much done. I've done all I can do for this. It was just about trying to revive the channel and kind of letting Nick kind of take over again.
Yeah, just keep the momentum going.
Yeah, that was the plan. It was only supposed to be 10 episodes, and as I say, we've done 32, so I think it was it was pretty good, and I've enjoyed it. I've really it has been great. You know, it's been a big honor for me to be, you know, part of the Gin and Tonic story and everything. I hope my swearing wasn't too much for most people, but no, it's in my nature, unfortunately. But yeah, I think we've done some good stuff. We did a good mixture of dawah stuff. We did the 70 Sins of Islam at the start, which I thought was an interesting project. And I really want to thank Hassan. I've not seen Hassan for a while, but he helped out with a lot of those earlier episodes as well, which was fantastic. So thank you to Hassan for coming in. And thank you to Ellie and the other guests. We've had a few people kind of drop in over the last 6 months. So yeah, it's been really nice, but I'm starting to feel like I'm accepting an award now or something. So I'm going to cut it short.
You want to thank your parents, your wife, and yeah.
Well, look, most of it, and obviously Rob has dropped in for a few episodes. So I'm really grateful for that. But mostly, stop spamming. I mean, I've managed to persuade him to stay here for the entire run, and that just shows what a good guy he is. And I wouldn't have done it without him. So I'm really, really pleased that he's stuck around all this time. So thank you, Stops, giving us all your time here.
My pleasure.
It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Well done, my good sir.
Shows my conviction.
Yeah,
you're kind of like the roots, the foundation that holds it oftentimes. Same when I was the host as well. So, and your broad knowledge and fun and just, you know, you never know what we're going to get from Stop. So it's always a pleasure.
No, exactly. He has been the, as you say, he's been the kind of the. Well, I affectionately think of him as the godfather of the show. Not that you're a criminal or anything, but just, you know, the more like the family kind of godfather. You know, you've kept this going all these years in one capacity or another for most of this time, so that's really great. And look, the Gin and Tonic show, as I said, when I first took over, I said this show has regenerated more times than Doctor Who, and it will carry on doing so, I'm sure. So. It's not the end here, but it's the end of my run here as hosting. So thank you everyone who's been involved. I will see you over on my channel. Go and subscribe if you're not already part of my channel. The link is in the description of this video. Come over. I will hopefully have a live stream up next Wednesday, and it will be pretty similar to what we're doing here. So you're not really going to be missing much. In fact, it'll be less than a week before we can do this all again. So yeah, thank you everyone, and I think we're going to end it there.
Thanks, guys. Good